Good evening. My name is Alexander Hagan. I'm the CEO of a small, medium-sized tech company in Silicon Valley. Previously, I've been a financial analyst, a financial journalist, and involved in research and development in telecommunications, and have filed several patents. I have a cold right now, so bear with me. Tonight's story is about a key factor in the entire Libya story being gotten wrong by most of the people that would traditionally be opposed to the violent overthrow of a government by massive foreign invasion of a small, nearly defenseless country that had given up its weapons of mass destruction in order to ally with the West in this particular case, Libya. I'm not going to do a lot of background in this story. I'm going to get right to the point so people that need background can see. I've done many videos. They can look at the top rated ones if they like, and that'll give them lots and lots of background about how this story was gotten wrong. The basic question is whether Democracy Now! Correspondent Anjali Kamat is an intelligence agent specializing in disinformation, or simply a young, inexperienced, and naive journalist. I would tend to assume she's the latter, but one can't be certain. For such an important assignment, I am truly puzzled. We know reporters are picked by the large outlets who toe the line, often resembling Ken and Barbie more than reporters. But for an institution such as Democracy Now! To get this wrong is a real tragedy. So we need to examine how it happened and hopefully help them make sure nothing like this ever happens again. I would venture to say that had they got it right, there would have been much more outrage amongst those people on the left and the right indirectly about the fact that there is a lot of facts about this conflict that were repressed and concealed. This story is about how serious it is when an important, respected news source that is normally highly anti-war does not do proper due diligence. I've done a 3-part series called A Disinformed Citizenry, and this case study of getting a story completely wrong fits exactly the analysis, meaning not that we arrive at the same conclusion, but there's a framework. How does garbage data enter a system, and how is it propagated? Is it done deliberately at the top levels? Is it done through incompetence? What are the mechanisms to allow data corruption to enter our society? Because we are an information society. We don't want data corruption. The most serious problem with ensuring that international law and diplomacy is fair to all parties, which is the basis for a stable and peaceful world, in the case of Libya, was for the normal dissident voices to invasion and bombardment of countries, in this case, were very, very late to question the 12,000 bombing runs on an army the size of the New York Police Department, about 30,000 people, guarding a country with no debt and $10 trillion in oil, gas, freshwater aquifers, and gold. There's roughly 1 bombing run for every 2 soldiers, an incredible ratio. We're not talking about no-go runs. We're talking about runs that actually unload their payload. In some cases, these can be 2,000-pound bombs, more than one. And there would have been 1 whole plane load of munitions dropped for every 2 soldiers in Libya. This is an incredible ratio. I was most horrified with Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Amy and Juan began to really investigate the problems with the Libya coverage that they themselves were conducting after the deed was done. That is, after more than half of Libya's armed forces were murdered. At 500 to 1 odds, which is what we're talking about in terms of NATO versus Libya, not to mention Qatar. There's no other word to describe it. It's not war, it's slaughter. It's murder. They were utterly defenseless because the air defenses were taken out, and so forth. They had no way to retaliate whatsoever. And another estimated 20,000 civilian and rebel casualties. After the country's main historical treasures were looted, just as in Iraq, supposedly the most valuable historical treasure in the world was stolen from Benghazi. A huge cache of treasure and coins from the time of Alexander the Great, who happened to not be that far away from Libya because he conquered Egypt. Benghazi may in fact have been part of the Alexandrian Empire. And the entire family of modern Libya's founder was exterminated, some by drones, other by the NATO and Qatari equipped armed rebels, many of which were jihadists, Salafists, and had ties and affiliations with Al-Qaeda. And this is not for me to critique their views. I'm simply stating facts, and these facts are very alarming in terms of the narrative of the Western media about the war on terror, and yet taking the very enemies that we supposedly have in the war on terror and equipping them to attack and destroy a government that had voluntarily already surrendered its weapons of mass destruction, was fully cooperating with this war on terror, secret rendition programs, and so forth. And one of Libya's most beautiful cities, Sirte, was utterly leveled by NATO in its casualty-less warfare. Reporters may have biases, but their job is not to narrate. It is to investigate. Here we see the media organization being misinformed by the data collection process, and apparently their own incompetence in fundamentals of journalism. We will see that their reporter, Anjali Kamat, does not fundamentally have any journalistic rigor. She never really states who, what, where, when, and how, and from the point of view of analysis, why. So I'm going to quote a man who wrote about her here, and I'll try to make this bigger so you can see it. This is a quotation, and I cite the source here, papillon.web.net. So this will give you a background on Anjali Kamat's reporting prior to what I'm about to show you, which is when she's essentially called on the carpet by Juan and Amy and questioned in the most delicate way they can, since they seem to take her under their wing as a very young lady. After the beginning of the NATO-backed revolution in Libya, Democracy Now! Rarely reported on Libya, but once victory was at hand, Amy had Anjali Kamat report on the situation. After spending just over a week embedded with the rebels, shortly after their NATO-supported takeover of the government in Tripoli, Anjali reported that everyone she met was celebrating the victory over the brutal dictator Gaddafi, that she had seen little damage from NATO bombing in the countryside. Somehow, NATO planes flew 6,000 sorties in the country. Actually, it's 20,000. And I double reference all of the statistics I claim, or I will admit that I don't know for certain. Over a period of 4 months without doing any significant damage. No one is reporting clear statistics on fatalities yet, but since they were using depleted uranium munitions on the ground, I imagine the numbers will grow. When asked about the situation widely reported elsewhere of the black African Libyans and Central African workers in the country who have been targeted from the beginning by the rebels, lynched, murdered, beaten, raped, she said that there were instances where these people were mistaken for mercenaries and killed, but that the NTC is working on the problem. Russia Today television and other sources, including a number of independent reporters, some of whom, like Franklin Lamb and Patrick Cockburn, are very experienced war reporters, have asserted these people are being lynched and massacred by the rebels. Given that the new military power on the ground in Tripoli is a graduate of Guantanamo, with an actual history of al-Qaeda leadership, while the NTC is still holed up in Benghazi, there will be lots of opportunity for freedom of action. So this is, he targets this right on the head as well. So we're going to look at her being questioned by Juan and Amy of Democracy Now! And we will make this quick. Okay.
Well, Anjali, Egypt was not the only focus of your reporting. You also had many dispatches from the revolution in Egypt, and I'm wondering if you could